Hello and welcome to today's episode. Today we're going to talk about some AI news. We are going to talk about some Ukraine updates, some Israel updates, and how PC is the winner of the console wars. So let's get started with AI news. First topic of AI news is OpenAI launches Sora. Here is a thread in perplexity.ai that explains it. OpenAI has introduced Sora, a new generative AI model capable of creating videos from text instructions. Sora is a diffusion model that uses a transformer architecture similar to GPT models to generate realistic and imaginative scenes, including complex scenarios with multiple characters and specific types of motion. The model can also animate still images, extend existing videos, and fill in missing frames, producing videos up to a minute long in various styles such as photorealistic, animated, or black and white. Despite its capabilities, Sora has limitations, such as difficulties in simulating complex physics, understanding cause and effect, and maintaining spatial details accurately. For instance, it might not show a bite mark on a cookie after someone takes a bite, or it could mix up left and right in a scene. OpenAI is taking safety precautions before making Sora widely available. They are working with red teamers to test the model for potential harms, such as misinformation, hateful content, and bias. They are also developing tools to detect misleading content and plan to include C2PA metadata in the future to ensure provenance of video generated by Sora. Sora is currently available to red teamers and a select group of visual artists, designers, and filmmakers for feedback. OpenAI is engaging with policymakers, educators, and artists to understand concerns and identify positive use cases for technology. They emphasize that learning from real-world use is crucial for creating and releasing increasingly safe AI systems. The introduction of Sora follows OpenAI's pattern of rapid development in generative AI tools, including ChatGPT, DALL-E 3, and now Sora, which represents a significant advancement in AI's ability to generate video content. So Sora is for video what DALL-E 3 or Midjourney or Stable Diffusion is for photos. If you look at AI video generation from a year earlier, there's a video, really terrible video of Will Smith eating spaghetti. Just crappy video, and the video samples shown by OpenAI are just amazing. Now some of them look a bit video game-ish, but some of them look really photorealistic. And in an election year, that is 2024, that seems like a bad idea if you ask me. There are 65 something elections around the world in 2024, and releasing a tool that can generate any video just from a text prompt seems like a bad idea if you want to ask me. Just maybe you shouldn't have done that. But thankfully they're launching it slowly. They're not just releasing it into the wild like ChatGPT did. But also ChatGPT was GPT-3. They had launched GPT-1 and 2. But still, this seems like a bad idea. But yeah, this can be a good idea for filmmakers. It's not going to replace artists and cameramen and editors just yet, at least for now. In the future it probably will, but at least for now it will not do that. So how can it be useful for filmmakers? Like I said before, The model can also animate still images, extend existing videos, and fill in missing frames. So if you screw up something when recording, you can fix it with Sora in editing process. And it will not always get right. For example, people on Twitter/X were giving prompts, and Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, was releasing videos. There was a video of golden retriever puppies playing in snow. There was another video where dogs or wolves or foxes were like going through each other. That was a weird video. So it doesn't understand spatial details, or it doesn't maintain them accurately. It doesn't understand cause and effect. It doesn't understand complex physics, right? So these are the limitations. And like text to photos, like DALL-E 3 and Stable Diffusion and Midjourney, they also have issues. Sometimes they'll show more than 5 fingers on a person. Sora will also probably have some issues, but it is much better than that old video of Will Smith eating a spaghetti. I don't know why they just didn't do a video of Will Smith eating spaghetti as like a base benchmark. They should have just done that. And I don't know why they didn't. But it is what it is. I'm excited for this technology. It will be an amazing tool for filmmakers, just like cameras and just like editing software and just like all the equipment. This will be an amazing tool in the immediate future for filmmakers. But maybe hold on. During the election year, don't make this technology widely available just yet. Maybe do that in the future. Next topic in AI news. Reddit has a $60 million data deal with Google. So Reddit last year stopped third-party Reddit clients and closed its API. What does that mean? So if you want to use Facebook or Instagram, you will just download Facebook or Instagram app. That wasn't the case for Reddit. You can use an official Reddit app, and it is the most popular version of Reddit, but there were also you could use multiple Reddit apps until last year. Reddit shut it down. Why? Well, Reddit has a lot of good user data, or user generated content to be more specific, that can be used to train AI. Similar with Twitter. You can use official Twitter app, or you could use other Twitter apps to use Twitter until last year. Last year Twitter shut down its API too, because Twitter also has really good user generated content, and that can be used to train AI. Reddit user generated data and Twitter user generated data could provide valuable perspectives. So if you want to find a review of something, you can just search on Google. It will lead you to different websites, but a lot of these websites are just bots. There's no genuine content on these websites. That's not the case with Reddit or Twitter. On Reddit or on Twitter, because the content is user generated, whether it's news, whether it's reviews, whatever you want, because the content is user generated, you could use it to train data, and it will increase the quality of your AI chatbot. And that's a great cash cow for Reddit. And that's why they have a $60 million data deal with Google. Reddit just opened itself, or it just went public, I think in January, February. Recently, it went public recently. Its ticker is RDDT, and it IPO'd basically. IPO'd. That's the correct word. And one of the major shareholders of Reddit is Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI. OpenAI is the company behind ChatGPT and Sora and DALL-E. So you get the idea. Reddit data is valuable. It has a $60 million data deal with Google, and that's why they have IPO'd. Other AI news is Nvidia is now a $2 trillion company. Well, almost 2 trillion. It is now 1.9 something. Nvidia makes GPUs, graphical processing unit, something like that. And Nvidia's GPUs have CUDA technology, CUDA. This technology is important for AI. And only Nvidia does it right now, because a lot of AI technology depends on CUDA, and it's something specific to Nvidia only. Other competitors are trying to catch up, but right now, because it's exclusive to Nvidia, there's a huge demand for Nvidia GPUs. And you might have seen Nvidia logo on your Windows computer, but these are not the same GPUs that are used to train AI, although you can try it, but they will not give you that adequate performance. For AI generation or for servers, you'll need something like Nvidia A100 or Nvidia H100 GPU, and those cost like thousands and thousands of dollars. If I remember correctly, Nvidia H100 costs $40,000 a piece, if I remember correctly. So you get the idea. If just one GPU costs tens of thousands of dollars, and you need thousands and thousands of GPUs per AI server company or per company, there's a lot of money to be made by Nvidia. But competitors are trying to catch up. Apple is trying to catch up with the M series SoCs. In 2020, Apple ditched Intel and AMD GPUs, and they decided to go completely in-house. They make their own processors now. These new Apple processors are integrated, GPU, CPU, RAM, and all that. They are called SoCs. It's based on ARM technology. ARM technology is used for smartphones mostly. There are also other uses, but it's used mostly for smartphones. And Apple managed to increase the performance of ARM technology based processors or SoCs, system on chip SoCs, to match those of Intel and AMD. They have decided to ditch Intel and AMD. They were using Nvidia GPUs until like 2015, 2016, and then they had falling out with Nvidia and they switched to AMD. And now Nvidia is going just way up. I think Apple will be one of the companies that tries to catch up, hardware wise and also software wise, to Google and to OpenAI in software and to Nvidia with hardware. AMD also will try to catch up to Nvidia. AMD is the biggest competitor Nvidia has in the GPU market. And AMD, there's a lot of money to be made, and AMD has already disrupted Intel's business since 2017 with the Ryzen processors, and they will try to do that to Nvidia as well. There are other companies. There's another company called Groq. Now Groq is spelled as GROQ. this graphics company, or NPU company, neural processing unit. Whereas the Grok, the chatbot inside Twitter/X, is called GROK. So GROQ is the company that's also getting in the game. It made a lot of headlines recently, but I haven't really looked into that company yet. But even that is going to try and to compete. Intel also recently started, like 3-5 years ago, they started making their own graphical processing unit or GPUs, and Intel will also try to catch up. Intel has already lost Apple as a customer for their Mac lineup because Apple went with their own in-house SoCs, and Intel will also try to compete with Nvidia. So competition is coming, but right now Nvidia has a near monopoly on AI GPU market, and that's why it's now a $2 trillion company. This does raise concerns whether the AI is just a bubble, because sure, revenues have skyrocketed for Nvidia, but not so much for other companies. Companies like OpenAI. OpenAI has a much bigger revenue right now, sure, but for companies like Microsoft and Google, the revenue is not hasn't their its revenue their revenue hasn't got their revenue haven't gone up like that of Nvidia or OpenAI. So maybe it's a bubble. Maybe this is just a bubble. But AI is a useful technology, even if the current one is just a bubble, stock market bubble, but it will grow eventually. Think of it like the dot-com crash in the late 90s, where every company with a dot-com in its name had its stock market value just going up, stock price going up, even though they were not making a lot of money. But right now, internet it's a part of our life. And same thing with AI. Whether it's a bubble or not, it will be eventually a part of our life, and we'll see what happens. Maybe this is a bubble and everything just crashes. Eventually it will be a major part of our life. Last topic in AI news. Google's Gemini image generation screw up. Now this is just a funny story, just really funny. So Google launched its image generation feature inside Gemini. Gemini is the chatbot of Google, just like how OpenAI has ChatGPT. And image generation is a competitor to DALL-E, to Stable Diffusion, to Midjourney. Google's Gemini is image generation. But something funny happened. It started making white people brown. You just couldn't generate pictures of white people for some reason. So it showed founders of America as black or Native American. If you know your history, if you know history of the American Revolution and the American Civil War, the founders or early Americans were not exactly kind to Native Americans or to black people. And this Google Gemini AI was showing Native Americans and black people as founders of United States of America. Same thing with Vikings. Vikings, famously European people, they were showing, Google Gemini was showing black Vikings. Also with 1940s Germany. That Germany was mostly white. There were some Arab and Ethiopian soldiers in Hitler's Germany, but it was mostly white. And Google Gemini started showing black and Chinese and Native American German soldiers in the 1940s. So it was a screw up. Apparently what happened, is that it was only showing pictures of white people at first in their experiments. So if you asked Gemini to create pictures of black family or something like that, it will just show up a white family. And they overcorrected to the point where you just couldn't generate pictures of white people. The worst one was it made founders of Google Chinese. Founders of Google were white people, and Google Gemini made them Chinese. So this was a disaster. People were saying it's because of their DEI, because of political correctness. Google's corporate culture is extremely politically correct, or what you call woke. And this problem was pointed out in the famous memo by James Damore in 2015 or 2017, something like that. And yeah, so I don't know, maybe it overcorrected, maybe it's a problem with Google culture, they're trying to be politically correct, I don't know, but it was a massive screw up for Google.
Okay, so while I was editing the video, there was an announcement from Microsoft that it is partnering up with a company called Mistral. It will enter into a multi-year partnership with Mistral AI, a French startup specializing in artificial intelligence. This collaboration is part of Microsoft's strategy to diversify its AI offerings on its Azure cloud computing platform, extending beyond its significant investment in AI. As a part of the agreement, Microsoft will make Mistral AI's models available on Azure and also take... It's hot here. Anyway. And has also taken a minority stake in the company. Mistral AI is known for its LLMs that are similar to those pioneered by OpenAI, capable of understanding and generating human-like text. Mistral's proprietary model, Mistral Large, will be first to be made available to Azure customers. The technology will be hosted on Microsoft's cloud platform, and the startup has plans to make its models available on other cloud platforms in the future. So, the partnership also includes a financial investment from Microsoft, with reports indicating that the tech giant will invest $2.1 billion in Mistral AI to support the startup's commercial growth and market expansion. Additionally, Mistral AI will launch a ChatGPT style AI chatbot named LeChat as a part of its offering, because this is a French company. Of course, they are going to call it LeChat. Wow, this is hot in here. Yeah, so they will diversify from OpenAI. AI is new technology, and I guess they want to lead in this market. So they are just investing in every major LLM startup. They didn't invest in Anthropic, but they're investing in Mistral. So that's that.
So next story. PC is the winner of console wars. Well, Microsoft recently announced that 4 Xbox games will become multi-platform, meaning they will be available on other consoles besides Xbox. Games that are confirmed to be going multi-platform include Hi-Fi Rush, Pentiment, Sea of Thieves, and Grounded. These titles are a part of Microsoft's strategy to reach a wider audience and grow the Xbox platform by making certain games available on rival platforms like PlayStation and Nintendo. So, some games are going multi-platform, some Xbox games. If you know the console market, the PlayStation versus Xbox debate, it's all about exclusive games. Right? So, if you want to, you're basically deciding if you want to buy an Xbox or a PlayStation based on the games that are available on these consoles. If you like PlayStation games or what PlayStation has to offer, you'll go towards PlayStation. If you like what Xbox has to offer, Xbox, then you'll purchase an Xbox, right? Because some of these games are coming to other platforms, you have less of an incentive to buy an Xbox. Again, if you know the console market, you know there's a meme going around that Xbox has no exclusives, meaning Xbox has no exclusive games. Microsoft, which makes Xbox, has tried to make some exclusives by purchasing a game studio called Bethesda for $7 or $8 billion in 2019 or 2020, something like that. Then it purchased Activision Blizzard King for $68.7 billion. $68.7 billion. Just for gaming. That's just for gaming. And recently they've announced some of these exclusives are coming to other platforms. Well, that just means you just have to buy PlayStation. You can just get PlayStation exclusives or you can get Xbox exclusives. Right? Right? Well. PlayStation games are gradually becoming available on PC, allowing players to enjoy titles like God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, and Marvel Spider-Man, and more on their Windows PCs. So here's what is happening. You can get an Xbox, but you'll not get PlayStation games. You'll just get Xbox games. You can get a PlayStation, but you'll just get PlayStation games. You'll not get Xbox games. But if you get a Windows computer, a fast, really capable Windows computer, not only you can just use it as a computer, but you can play Xbox games. You can also play PlayStation games. You get what I'm saying? Why would you invest in consoles? Why would you buy an Xbox or PlayStation when you can play both of their games on PC, on Windows? Clearly, PC is winning the console wars. Sure, not all Xbox games are on PC, not all PlayStation games are on PC, but they're slowly opening up. Meaning, at some point, if this trend continues, all of the games on PlayStation and on Xbox will be available on PC. Which means PC will win the console wars. Simple. That's it for tech news. We'll shift to international news. What's happening? Let's see. First, Ukraine updates. Well, there was a Tucker Carlson Vladimir Putin interview in which Putin explained all the history of the conflict. If you have been paying attention to Western media, a lot of this information will be new to you, but if you have been listening to podcasts like podcast of yours truly or other international news podcasts like geopolitical podcasts, you know the whole story. You know the whole history of Russia and Ukraine. Russia and Ukraine's history with when there was Soviet Union, and after the collapse of Soviet Union, the NATO expansion, the Ukraine coup in 2014. You know that you will get that story on podcasts. That's what Russian President Vladimir Putin. That story, that whole story was explained by Russian President Vladimir Putin. He didn't endorse any podcasts, but he said the story. He told the world the story. And a lot of people who are not listening to the geopolitical podcasts, they got this story thanks to Tucker Carlson. Because there was a complete media blackout, Western media blackout regarding this whole conflict. And thanks to this interview, that information is now reached to a wider audience. Zelensky recently fired the Ukrainian commander Zaluzhny. This was on February of 8th, if I remember correctly. The rumors were circulating that Zaluzhny will get fired. There were also rumors of Zaluzhny conspiring with former Ukrainian President Poroshenko to remove Zelensky. So there could have been a power struggle in Ukraine. But it seems that Zaluzhny and Poroshenko didn't have blessings from Washington, and Zelensky stays in power. Zaluzhny got fired. Avdiivka, another Ukrainian fortress, fell. So Ukrainians withdrew from Avdiivka. Avdiivka was another fortress city, kind of like Bakhmut was, and it fell recently, and Russians have captured it. Before the fall of Avdiivka, there was a complete blackout, media blackout on what's happening in the ground, at least in television and in the articles. There were some stories here and there that told the truth, but general narrative was that Russia and Ukraine conflict is heading towards a stalemate. And if there's a stalemate, there will be a ceasefire. And it will be a frozen conflict, kind of like North Korea and South Korea. But with the fall of Avdiivka, that narrative of stalemate has been shattered completely. That narrative is just gone. It's clear to everyone that Russians are winning. It's absolutely clear to everyone. Last point, Alexei Navalny is dead. Now, who is Navalny? He was hyped up as this opposition to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Yeah, he was opposition, but he wasn't the main opposition. Alexei Navalny had approval ratings of 2% in Russia, whereas President Putin has approval ratings of 79%. His approval ratings fluctuated. They were in mid 50s, they were in 60s, and right now Putin's approval ratings are 79%, whereas Navalny is just 2%. So Navalny wasn't really an opposition. He said a bunch of nasty things about Muslims to rile up Russian people, but Russians didn't support him. Not much. There was some support from more liberal Russians, from pro-Western Russians, mostly in Moscow and St. Petersburg, but that Russians really didn't support Alexei Navalny. There was a video of an associate of Alexei Navalny talking to an MI5 or MI6 agent. This video was recorded in secret in 2015, 2016, around that time. And in that video, the associate of Alexei Navalny asked that British agent $200 million for a revolution against President Putin. Now, if you want to remove a leader, that's fine. But if you are starting a revolution, if you are trying to start a revolution, you are basically a traitor. Look at what happened to people who stormed into the American Capitol on January 6, 2021. Yeah. That's kind of what the intention was of this Alexei Navalny. In fact, it was worse. If you know the truth about January 6, if you have seen that footage, They weren't really trying to overthrow the US government. There's questions about that. I'm not the person to judge that. That's up to Americans. But there's no doubt that Alexei Navalny was trying to start a color revolution against Russian president. If you are starting a color revolution, you are not really a legitimate opposition. You are a traitor, which is what Alexei Navalny was. And last one, Israel updates. Israel is now going into Rafah. Let me get the details on that. According to recent news reports, Israel is planning to invade the city of Rafah in Gaza. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has described Rafah as the last bastion of Hamas, with 4 battalions of gunmen, and that Israel cannot achieve its goal of eliminating the group while they remain there. The looming operation in Rafah intends to permanently displace hundreds of thousands of Palestinians over the border, according to experts. Analysts believe Netanyahu's stated plan is part of a broader plot to depopulate Gaza and extend his political survival, as many predict that he will be removed from post after the war. However, world leaders have warned a full-scale assault on Rafah is a red line, despite few threatening to punish Israel if it goes ahead. So, Joe Biden does not really approve of Israel going into Rafah. The British government does not really approve of Israel going into Rafah. If you have heard about the recent International Court of Justice, its ruling on the whether Israel is committing a genocide, it indirectly confirmed that Israel is committing genocide. It just said Israel to be careful and avoid civilian casualties. That was the official verdict, but in indirect terms, it was kind of confirming that Israel was committing genocide. If you read the full verdict, why is Netanyahu going into Rafah? Like I said, it wants to wipe out Hamas from Gaza, and some people say they are trying to depopulate Gaza and annex Gaza into Israel proper. UNSC cannot force a ceasefire thanks to US veto. There have been multiple resolutions in UN Security Council to force a ceasefire in the Israel-Gaza conflict, but US keeps vetoing that resolution. So that's US. And last point, this is something I learned recently. Israel's economy after the October 7 has declined by 20%. 20% decline. Let me put that into perspective. The 2008 financial crisis declined world GDP by just 1%. The 1929 Great Depression, the worst financial crisis of all time in the recorded history, had reduced world GDP by 15%. 2008, 1%, 1929, 15%, and Israel's economy has declined by 20%. Let me give you another number. After the collapse of Soviet Union, Russian economy collapsed or declined by 40%. 40%. So Israel's economy is well into depression, and if this conflict continues and Israel's economy doesn't stabilize, or worse, if the conflict expands into a war against Hezbollah, remember Hezbollah is much more powerful army than Hamas. This was before October 7. Hezbollah was powerful than Hamas, and if Right now, Israel has depleted some of its resources fighting Hamas, and its economy has declined by 20%. So if the war expands, Israel's economy could decline further, and there's a good chance it will suffer a collapse like Soviet Union did if the conflict expands. Now, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was under investigation for corruption and other charges before October 7. There were huge protests going on in Israel against the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And it's definitely in the interest of Benjamin Netanyahu to prolong this conflict. Netanyahu was kind of this security guy, and his whole legitimacy has been shattered thanks to the October 7 attack. And even with that legitimacy, he was under investigation before October 7. Now that legitimacy is gone, and Israel's economy has declined by 20%, and that investigation and that protests were going on before October 7. It's really in Prime Minister's interest to continue this conflict as long as possible. To be the guy, to be the hero of Israel who wiped out Hamas completely. Right? But, like I said, if the conflict continues and Israel's economy doesn't stabilize, or worse, if the conflict expands, Israel could suffer a collapse, total collapse. Now, Israel has nuclear weapons. This is like an open secret. We don't know how many nuclear weapons they have, but they have nuclear weapons. So, it's not going to be a total end of Zionism. There's a small possibility that if the conflict expands, it's the end of Zionism, because Hezbollah has precision guided missiles. They can target oil and natural gas fields of Israel. They can target water desalination plants. Remember, Israel is a desert nation. It has to desalinate water to make it drinkable, and there are many plants that do this. Israel is one of the top countries when it comes to desalinating water. Other Arab countries are also up there. But if the conflict expands against Hezbollah, if a new front is opened against Hezbollah in northern Israel, on the Israel-Lebanon border, and if Hezbollah targets energy and water source of Israel, it can end Israel as a nation state. It can just doom Israel, because this will just even if let's just say if desalination plants are intact, if only oil and natural gas fields are hit, that will cause a huge inflation because of supply and demand basic. And if energy is expensive, you're seeing what's happening in Europe, what's happening in Germany. Germany is starting to deindustrialize. It's in recession. It's starting to deindustrialize. Its economy was mostly high-tech manufacturing, and those companies are moving out of Germany. So you get the picture. So it's in Israel's interests to have a ceasefire. Now some of you might say, sure, but Israel has a Jewish lobby in the West, in United States and in Europe. Jewish lobbies are very, very powerful in those countries. They can Europe and US can fund them, right? Well, US is doing everything it can to support Israel, and like I said before, because of US vetoes, UN Security Council cannot force a ceasefire. And because of this conflict, US and Europe is being pushed away from the rest of the world, from the global south. Because of this is extremely unpopular. This war is extremely unpopular in the global south because of the history of global south with colonialism, right? And how long can they fund it? Like I said before, Europe's economy is going down because energy is too expensive for them, and US in recent years under Biden have hit 100% debt to GDP ratio. If you hit 100% debt to GDP ratio, you're done as an economy. Now sure, US is postponing this because it's the reserve currency of the world, it's the biggest army in the world, it has the latest technologies. Well, at least in the consumer space, it has the latest technologies. US has. So it's postponing its decline and recession and depression because of this. And that's why it can fund Israel at this point. But with the wave of de-dollarization going on, if the war escalates against Hezbollah, if Israel and Hezbollah go into a war, if US is dragged again into the Middle East against a war with Iran, and then de-dollarization happens, then it's end for America as a superpower, and it possibly is an end for Israel as a country. So Israel must do a ceasefire. It's in Israel's interest to do a ceasefire, to stabilize the economy, and maybe do operations again in the future after the economy is stabilized. But it's up to the Israeli government and Israeli people. It's not up to me, but it's up to Israeli government and Israeli people. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys very, very soon.